So a question we always get is, how did you know you were healing? And for me, actually, it was quite random. We were actually in TK Maxx one day, like maybe a couple of years ago, just shopping. Normally we'd go in there to look at like the home stuff or like the handbags because they have cute handbags. But we randomly decided to walk over to the toy section. And when I was in the toy section, I felt like an overwhelming urge to buy this, which I call Shroomy. For those of you that can't see, I'm holding like a giant plushie in the shape of a mushroom. It's got a green body and a red head with dots on it, white dots.
And a smiley face.
And a smiley face. It's very cute. And the reason that this was healing for me was actually because probably since the age of like 8 or 9, I actually detested stuffed toys. I had like one from my childhood, what I got from like the day I was born. I still have that to this day. And I kept that. But I think the majority of my stuffed toys, after like the age of like maybe 9, I just had no interest in. And after that age, I hated the idea of getting teddy bears or like plushy toys as a gift or even given to me for any reason. I remember when I was like 14, one of my friends in school got me a teddy bear for my birthday and I was just disgusted by it. Thank you for remembering my birthday, but like I hated it so much. And I just kept it in my room, like in the wardrobe at the back somewhere so that I wouldn't have to see it because I hated it. But yeah, and that was essentially the reality for me probably up until a few years ago when we walked into TK Maxx and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this, I need it. And I had not experienced that probably since I was a child. And for me, that was such a big sign because when I think back to like, why did I not want to have a plushie or a teddy bear? Or why did I hate these things with such
passion?
Because it wasn't just teddy bears. I also hated watching animated movies, anything cartoon related.
Anything cutesy, like.
Yeah, it was just not for me. And don't get me wrong, cute clothes, love them all day, bright, colourful things, love them. It was just anything that was like considered childish, even though I didn't associate it as childish. It was just like, I don't want that. And I think when I look back, I think to that period and I think, oh, why didn't I like them so much? And I guess because I had to grow up quite quickly and I had to be the eldest of 5 children. I had to grow up in lots of other ways. And I was kind of like robbed of that part of my childhood in a way, I guess, because I had to grow up so quickly. So those things were irrelevant and pointless and I just didn't want it. And I guess probably subconsciously to some extent, it showed that actually I really missed out on that part and I wanted that part, but like didn't want to be reminded that I missed out on that part, if you know what I mean.
There's probably an element of like, you know, how to connect with that part of you as well, because I guess in the sense, you know, you were forced to grow up and you had to almost abandon that part of you. When you kind of abandon yourself, you forget what it's like to enjoy those things. So
yeah,
it would then therefore be very hard for you to be like, oh, this is really cute. Let me play with that. Or like, let me watch that cartoon because it really brought me joy because there isn't a bridge connecting the two anymore. You've almost like burnt the bridge down.
Exactly, yeah.
And it becomes a whole thing, right?
Yeah, and also as well, I think the funny thing was that I actually, whilst I didn't like any of these things, my personality was still very like bubbly and very like connected with my inner child in terms of like joking around, laughing.
I'd say is a very good word.
Yeah, I had a very playful personality and I always actually had that throughout my whole life essentially. But it was just like kids' toys and kids' things. And I was just like, get away from me. I hate this teddy bear. Why did you bought me this as a gift? And I would actually say to people, please don't ever buy me a teddy bear. I hate them. That would be actually a thing that I would say to people if ever a conversation came up of like, oh, what would you like for your birthday? Or just please don't buy me a teddy bear. Because yeah, I hate them. But now I don't.
Including me. This is like one thing she said. I love what you buy me. Whatever you do, you don't ever buy me a teddy bear. So you can imagine my surprise when we're actually in TK Maxx and she sees this Shroomy and it wasn't even a question. She was like, I'm buying this. I was like, okay. I don't know what's going on here, but yeah. And obviously at the time we didn't pin it down to, oh, you know, you're healing and you're reconnecting with being a child. But further down the line, obviously us going down the whole rabbit hole, this healing journey that we're on, and you guys are in it too, we realized that, the reason that you bought that is because you're healing and you're reconnecting with yourself, which is beautiful to see.
Thanks.
And now the house is lit with toys and teddies and we watch cartoons together. Pels has never watched Pokemon, so we actually haven't watched it in a while, but we started watching Pokemon every Saturday morning at breakfast because that was something that I used to do as a kid. Because back in the day before Netflix and YouTube and all these things, you'd have to wait every week for your favorite shows if they were only on once a week. Pokemon was one of those ones. So I was like, hey, let's kind of recreate that. You've never watched it. Let's watch it together. We'll get up on the Saturday. And that's something that we share with each other. And there's loads of other cartoons that she's never watched, or even if she has watched them, like, let's watch them again because like Recess, dope. Dragon Ball Z, dope. Right.
And also, I've not seen Finding Nemo or like a lot of cartoon movies either,
Yeah.
which was like a big thing.
Right, yeah. So like Pixar movies, not a thing for Pearl. So
I hate them.
what did we watch the other day? Inside Out.
Yes, which is actually really great.
You've seen Incredibles?
Maybe the first one, but like
Yeah.
I don't remember it.
Not seen Finding Nemo. Seen Toy Story?
Maybe the first one. This is like when I'm really, really, really young though. That I've probably seen
so
it.
it doesn't really count.
And the only movie that I remember I actually loved as a kid, because I was obsessed with it and I got it as a gift, was The Lion King. I got it on like my 5th birthday on like VHS, and I rinsed it probably only up until the age of 9, and then carried on with life.
It's such an interesting topic because there's a range of reasons for why you ditch, I guess, the things that you used to enjoy as a kid. One of them being like, oh, the toys and the teddies and the cartoons are childish and I've grown up now, right? But who kind of decides that they're childish, or who decides that these things are only for children? Like using Pixar films, for example, if you actually watch them as an adult, I'd argue that they're made for adults, or at least they know or understand that adults are going to be watching them too. So they pepper in like the storyline that only adults would actually understand. And in fact, most Pixar things I enjoy more as an adult as I did as a kid because I understand them now, whereas before I didn't. So when it comes to like the teddies, the toys, the games we used to play, and just like, letting our imagination run wild, we pin this as childish, but what actually is us kind of following our inner wisdom that we have as kids to rest, to play, to have fun. These things we forget as adults, and we have people asking us like, how do you have fun? And it's like,
we get that a lot.
Every child isn't taught how to have fun. You have fun. It's just you being. That is the point. When you're present, you're having fun. This is why we say play is one of the best ways to heal, because when you're playful, when you're in a state of play, your body cannot be stressed. Your body cannot be in hyperarousal. Your body cannot be in hyperarousal. So you're not overactive or underactive. You are just in the middle somewhere, playing in the moment, not overthinking, not worrying, just experiencing joy. But somewhere along the line, in your case, it was, you had to grow up. In other people's cases, they just kind of ditched that stuff because they want to be mature now and they want to be seen as adults. Whatever reason it is, what you're in fact doing is you're just shutting the door to joy. And joy, like we will always say, is one of the most healing things you can do. When you stop experiencing joy, this is when the chronic stress starts setting in. This is when you start having anxiety. This is when you start feeling overwhelmed. And again, the reason being is because you're not actually allowing yourself to decompress and let go. You are just accumulating, carrying everything around with you. You're being more productive. You're being busy. But this is just leading you to burnout. And this is the problem most adults face, is that we burn the bridge in between our childhood and our adulthood, not realizing that the two are the same. We are still that child. We're just in a bigger body, right? We just, I think you said earlier, when we were talking about this, that even as adults, we still have toys.
Yeah.
Generalize it like men like cars, for example. That's their toys. For women.
Or like golf clubs, or like, PlayStation or Game Boys or something like that. They have lots of stuff. And I think women are essentially the same. Like our toys look a bit different now because we're a bit older. But I think the interesting thing is there's actually probably more cute things available for women than there are actually for men, in terms of like things that we can refer to that are like, cutesy or like fluffy.
Although I think it definitely affects both genders, I would say that I think for men there's probably a lot more stigma about being into your inner child, in the sense of expressing it in the way of the things that you used to like as a child. Like most men probably think that they can't share that they like, Pokemon, or they like watching cartoons or being silly with their girlfriends behind closed doors, but we do it. Sometimes she holds me like a baby, and I make Google Gaga sounds. I don't care. That lights me up because we're just having fun. And again, it's all stigmatized. It's all like, I need to behave a certain way. I need to act a certain way to fit in. I need to not do these things because I'll be seen as immature or childish. But the reality is, are you not doing it because that's what you think? Because if it is, then that means you're not being authentic. So again, your body is being put into stress just by being there. Every time that you're not truly you in any situation, your body feels it and your body releases stress hormones. Those stress hormones course through your body. What do they do? Symptoms, disease, conditions. All these things lead you to a doctor that tells you, I can't find anything wrong with you, but take some medication anyway. Here you go. And then you're stuck just numb and dumb, wondering like, is this the life that I've got now, where I'm just going to take this medication that leads to more medication and more problems?
Yeah, and it's interesting because, just to touch on the stigma and also the thought of like, oh, it's for kids, like we're adults now, essentially. I think the funny thing is, a lot of the time, if you're worried about like what other people think, because we posed this question to our community online, and we had loads of responses where people were sharing, adults who were sharing what things that they had bought or things that they have done to like connect with their inner child, right? And a topic that I saw come up actually quite regularly was people thinking I'm worrying too much about whether it would be seen as childish, or like maybe one of the partners thinks it's childish and the other one doesn't. And I think the reality is, if you're worried about getting something that makes you happy from like your childhood out of fear of being seen a different way or seen as being childish, then actually, I guess it's a good time to take a step back and ask yourself, actually, where else is this affecting or bleeding into my life? Because the reality is, if something sparks joy in you, you should be allowed to get it and not worry about whether it's childish or not, because who are we to label such things in such a way, right?
Reframe it. Okay, we're not talking about toys and these things. It's not childish, but you want to, I don't know, take up surfboarding. That's, you tell your friends and they're like, well, that's not going to make you any money, or that's pointless, or like, what are you going to do? Be a pro? You're like, no, I just do it because I want to enjoy it. But they don't think so. And you're not going to do it because, they labeled it as a waste of time.
Exactly. And this ties into like our episode from the previous week where we were talking about keeping yourself small. If you're, as kids, we don't actually really care or think too much about like what other people think. We just do what makes us happy. And I think as we get older, sometimes we get like stuck in these like confinements of like worrying and thinking about what society thinks of us, or how, if other people will approve, or what will someone say or think if I want to do this thing. Or maybe it's a bad idea or maybe it's a bad idea because so-and-so didn't think it was a good idea, essentially. But if you're staying true to yourself and what you want, you will find the path of joy. There's like no, without a doubt, right?
Yeah, there's no misturns, wrong directions. Everything leads to joy.
and also on top, what you will find is that you'll find that you're showing up in other areas of your life where you potentially maybe are keeping yourself small. So yeah, connecting with your inner child is obviously a big part of that. Interestingly enough as well, I read online that there was a record number of adults actually buying kids' toys.
Right.
And I'm not surprised by this, because if you think of it, right, the majority of people in that age bracket are probably millennials, right? And out of all of the people, boomers, Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Alpha, whatever the heck they're called, millennials, I feel, have had like the worst bag. We've had the worst hand dealt to us. And we've been through so many wars, so many financial crashes, so many lies, so much stress, trauma, and drama, right? The pandemic, lots of different things have happened. And we're only like, we've not even hit 40, right?
We're not even halfway
through our lifespan. Expected lifespan. We've not even made it 50% yet. And we've had to endure so much stuff. So I think actually the rise in adults buying kids' toys is not surprising. Because if we think back to a time where there was stability and certainty and safety in our lives, it was for a lot of us in childhood, right? Because we didn't have to worry about the things that we're having to worry about now. And for the most part, we were ignorant to the financial crashes, to the wars and the things that were going on in wider society. So what happens is we transport ourselves back to that period of time by connecting with something from that era of our childhood. So whether that looks like buying Lego sets, which is funny because Lego do Lego sets for adults now, which is a whole thing. You go into that shop and you see more adults than you actually see kids.
Yeah, facts. When we went in the other day, I was like, there's only adults.
Where are the kids? They're not here because it's an adult shop now. And there's lots of other things as well, like the craze with Labubus online. That's crazy. Sonny, Paris didn't know what Labubus was, so I had to show him earlier on today to be like, this is what a Labubu is. Ugly as hell. But there is a craze and a trend that everyone is obsessed with them. There's an obsession with like Sonic Angels and lots of other cutesy things like bag charms, bone charms. And I think a lot of this actually stems from like cute things that we like on our kids. And now that's bleeding into like our adult life in the best possible way, because if it brings you joy, why not, right?
And that's you forming that bridge that we were talking about. It's you then going, okay, I am an adult and recognizing that, but how can I reconnect with my inner child? How can I search for that feeling of safety that I have that isn't present in my life now? Well, if I find things that remind me of times when I did feel that, then I can start cultivating that feeling from within. Because, a lot of it is about enjoying these things. The nostalgia is beautiful. Like, I play Pokemon cards. I've got a Pokemon Teddy on my lap right now. That's a whole thing by itself. But then it also opens the door for you to start actually using these as also tools of healing. And that is incredible, because it's not like your typical, green smoothies, go to yoga class, go do breath work and journaling and blah, blah, blah. It's find things that you used to enjoy when you were a kid, get them, and enjoy them again. Like,
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, and I also think, interestingly enough as well, I think buying stuff in your adulthood that is actually from like your childhood, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be something that you got. I think for a lot of people, I know for me especially as well, that it was things that I was deprived of, things that I wasn't able to have because my parents couldn't afford it or the circumstance didn't allow it or whatever. And not even just buying things, but doing some of the things that I wasn't able to do as a kid. Like we got roller skates. It was really funny actually. When I first met when I had like a list of things that I wanted to do and wanted to learn, just because I didn't get to do them as a kid, or because they were things that I really wanted to do and I just hadn't had the opportunity to do them. And when the pandemic happened, Paris and I met, had all this free time. And Paris was a roller skater. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've wanted to roller skate forever, which means we can do it together now. So I got some roller skates. I'm not very good at it, but who cares? And I've fallen over many times, but it is joyous experience every time. And that is one of the things that was on my list that I got to do, that I wanted to do when I was a kid. Like I didn't get a chance to do that as a kid for whatever reason, but like doing it in adulthood as well. The point that I was making essentially is that doing these things in adulthood, especially if there were things that you were deprived of when you were a child, is actually just a form of taking back control. Sometimes it's because your parents can afford it. Other times it's because you had a narcissistic parent and didn't let you have it. And sometimes it's just because the circumstance didn't allow it. And I think it's important, especially, and it can be very healing, like when you decide, actually, I'm going to go and eat the stuff that I wasn't allowed to as a kid. I'm going to go buy the things that my parents couldn't afford as a kid. Because sometimes it's not like malicious. Sometimes it's just the circumstance didn't allow it.
Sometimes it's just, I don't want to give you that. I don't want you to have it.
Or sometimes it's sold out and they've looked everywhere under the sun and they can't find it. But like that was a need you had as a child and it wasn't met. And getting it is going to help you feel connected to that part of yourself and make that part of you happy again. And I think it's funny because I read a story online where a girl was talking about her mum had gone to Russia and her mum was like, would you like me to bring anything back? And she was like, oh, I want one of those like Russian doll thingies. So her mum basically went and bought like 12. So she bought them,
like 12 separate ones.
Like 12. No, I think it was 12 separate ones, like 12 different types of ones. Yeah. Anyway, she's brought them back and showed them all to her daughter. I was like, these are the ones that go up, got this one, this one. And then her daughter was like, oh my gosh, these are amazing. Which one's mine? And her mum was like, oh, you're not taking these to your room. You're not going to get to have one. You can look at them in the living room. They're going to stay here. And then she locked them in the cabinet and she left them there. So like, it's
child abuse.
That's wild, isn't it? Like that's wild. And I think like, you know, that if you had a parent like that, I'm really sorry that you had to experience that. And if you're questioning like, should I go get that thing? Yes, go get that fucking thing, because it's going to heal you in ways that you didn't understand. And it's a form of taking back control because you're an adult now. You can do what the heck you want. Like,
yeah, it's super empowering because if you think of it on a really basic level, when you're a kid and you want something, you have to ask permission. It's going to be a yes or a no. It's more often than not, it's going to be a no. But when you're an adult and you want something, there's no one to ask. So when you want something and you get it for yourself, it's like a really good way to practice self-love. And it's also empowering at the same time because you are like trusting yourself to make these decisions, whereas before you had to rely on someone else. So it seems really silly, but like under the surface, there is a lot going on. You're like reinforcing that level of trust with yourself and that level of like, oh, I can do this. Like the other day we went to B&M and there was this giant Mario's figurine. So I sent Pals a picture of it. She was waiting in the car. 10 minutes later, I put it in the boot. I was getting it anyway. I was just showing her.
My response was, get it.
Yeah.
And he was obviously getting it anyway.
Yeah. But we kind of play this little game where when we do see like these little things that kind of ignite that, oh, I want that mum or dad, then we'll just get it if we can, because that's feeding your inner child. Every time you have that feeling of I want this and you don't give it to yourself, it's kind of like, why not? Okay, if you can't afford it or if it doesn't fit in your budget, that's a whole different conversation. But like, if these things do fit in there, then absolutely. Like, Pearls has been teaching me the practice of like having ice cream for breakfast, for example. Like, she'd be like, oh, let's just have this chocolate or let's have this snack or this thing at said X, Y, Z time. Breakfast being a good example. And I don't know, it's breakfast. I didn't know. And Pearls would just be like, says who? Who told you you can't have ice cream for breakfast? And I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, adults told me that, and I'm an adult now. I know that adults don't know nothing because I don't know nothing. So I've been listening to adults' rules. So now we rewrite the script. She's laughing her head off. It's so true. That's the way we've got to think about a lot of things in life. I think we frame our existence based on rules that other people have set.
Yeah.
And when you actually start unraveling these rules, you realize that the majority of them actually don't make sense.
Absolutely, yeah. Because another funny thing that you say actually in relation to this is I don't care what time of the day it is. If I want a snack or a sweet or something, I'm gonna bring it up in conversation and be like, hey, do you fancy a blah blah blah? And often I will say it to Paris before dinner, not intentionally, it'll just be like, I'm in the kitchen, I can see a sweet. Do you want a sweet? And Paris will be like, no, it's gonna ruin my dinner. I'm like, really? It's one sweet. How many times have you said that to me?
Yes.
And I'm like, ruin your dinner. Who said that to me?
But the thing is, even that is because I probably, if I go back and I meditate on it, probably I used to ask for sweets before dinner, and my parents would be like, no, you're going to ruin your dinner. Which, that doesn't even make sense. Like, unless you're going to eat a whole house cake, like, why is one sweet going to ruin your dinner? It's not.
I'm so happy you said that, because every time you say it to me, that's literally why, like, what I'm just like, how is this one tiny topico going to ruin your dinner?
The belief, the conditioning runs deep, people. This is why we are doing what we're doing and we call it the art of healing. Because it's the journey that we are on. It's non-stop, but it's a fun ride.
And just to touch back on the actual buying things that spark joy to your inner child, right? Sometimes actually it's not even about buying the thing and using it. Sometimes it's just about having it in your house to subconsciously remind the your younger you that it's safe and I've got you. Like, hey, this is that thing that you wanted. I see you, I got you. I'm gonna satisfy you in that way by acquiring this thing. Because like if you go into our operation station, it's full of things like that. Like,
it's like a kid's room.
We've been asked, is it a kid's room? It's not. But if you go in there, it's very colourful. There's lots of kids things in there. There's lots of things that have absolutely no use, but we love it.
Yeah. It brings joy to us. Like every time I go in there to work, I don't see it as work because the whole room is designed for play. And it's like the opposite of where I used to work in an office, which was like soul destroying.
Like Google are actually onto something. If you've ever been in a Google office,
I've seen.
I've been in one.
Oh,
I'm joking. Yeah, if you've ever been in a Google office or you've seen like a picture of them, you'll notice that like it's very full of play.
Yeah.
Everything's very colorful. It's very bright. They have lots of things like that are just cool that you don't normally see in other offices. And it's like, oh, this is a clever idea.
Because they've probably poured millions into understanding human psychology, but also how the body and mind works. The typical way to work is 8 hours a day, more if you're unlucky. And it's like work for 3-4 hours, get like a 15 half an hour minute break, then back to work for 3-4 hours. That's not how our minds work. Like our minds on their own run a 90-minute cycle. So to work over 90 minutes is counterproductive anyway. Besides the point when we're actually breaking, what we're probably doing is going for a cigarette or scrolling our phone, waiting for the next session to.
Yeah.
This isn't decompressing. This is the whole issue. When it comes to like bringing balance back into your life, it's usually the little micro moments in your life that are causing things to be off. If we could just find a way to bring more joy in, more play in, this is where your body gets a chance to switch off for that moment that it needs so that it can go back and tackle, the task at hand. The problem is we have it back to front. We think that we have to follow this like productivity for productivity's sake thing where like the harder you work, the better your output, the more you will achieve and the more results you'll get, which, you might get those results or hit those goals by doing that, but you're probably going to be accompanied by burnout. Is there a better way? Absolutely. We just don't follow the other way because everyone is telling us to take this path, the one with the rules that have been set out by people before them. You get what we're getting at.
It's funny because in the Google break room at the office that I worked in, they had like a TV in there that had cheaters on all the time.
Right.
The show Cheaters.
Oh yeah.
That showed that.
I thought you meant the animals.
No. They had like a TV in there, and I don't know what channel it was on, but the main show that was always on that TV when you went in there was Cheaters, which is like it's like top tier reality TV because it's like you're completely disconnected from like your job. You can't like think about work whilst watching the show. It's hilarious. What was I going to say? I was going to say something else in relation to connecting with a child. Which is interesting. I mean, we're not going to say like go watch Cheaters on your break, but what I will say is that when you are doing things like buying toys, watching cartoons, doing things that connect you to your inner child. Essentially, you're in a state of play, right? And when you're in a state of play, it's actually the fastest way to heal because you're experiencing joy again. And something that we always say here is that, like, it's not actually about the healing journey. It's more the living journey, right? We probably should just rename ourselves to the art of living. Because that is actually what it's about. It's not about figuring out like, oh, what practice or modality do I need to do? Whilst those can be good, but I think the reality is the majority of us actually just want to learn to live again and live life to the fullest. And one of the best ways to actually do that is to start playing again, start doing things that bring joy in you. And you know, if like buying toys is not your thing, maybe watching something animated or something else is, or maybe it's baking because you've not done that since you were a kid. There's like so many things that when we think about them, it's like, oh, I've not done that since I was a child.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. It's important as well to note that, you know, you don't actually have to even pick things that are from your childhood or have that like nostalgia factor. Pick things as an adult that you enjoy. It's the same thing. You're still feeding the inner child. It doesn't have to be that cartoon you love when you were 8. It can be the thing that you do when you're 30 that you enjoy, but for some reason you stop doing it because you just let life get in the way. It doesn't matter what the joy looks like as long as it brings you joy.
Exactly.
And something really interesting as well is, what is the opposite of play?
Work.
See, you would think that the opposite of play is work, right? But this is a quote I'm paraphrasing. The opposite of play is in fact depression. Just to leave you with that thought. So to combat that feeling of depression, what must we do more? We must pray.
Play.
Yeah. So, you know, just kind of ask yourself how, first of all, I think it's like a life review, right? First, the question is, where in my life am I experiencing these moments of play or joy? And then how can I experience more of that? And then also, how can I do things that I am not doing that I know will bring me joy? And then if you want to take it a step further, how can I start bringing in new things that I haven't tried that I think might bring me joy? That is like the Holy Trinity. Hit that 1, 2, 3, boom, your life will start opening up. And then each day, once you've got like this list of things, just commit to like, I'm not even going to say 10 minutes, just do the thing that you found for 5 minutes and see how it goes. At the end of the day, come back to yourself and say, did I do something that brought me joy? If you didn't, then plan the next day. Okay, at X time, I'm going to do X thing. Boom. That way you're cultivating joy in the most easiest, most freest way possible.
Yeah, the least resistant way.
That's the word I was looking for.
And if at the end of this episode, because yes, we are at the end now, if you're still wondering, should I buy that thing from my childhood, or should I buy that toy, that Lego set? Shall I go to that concert? Whether it's Justin Bieber, Hannah Montana, whatever it is. If Hannah Montana came out with a concert, I would 100% go. Would go, would sing it'd be great. We would totally go. And I'd even wear the wig. But I digress. If you are still wondering at the end of this episode if you should get that thing, do that thing, pick up that thing, the answer is yes. Go do it. I promise you, it will feed your soul in a way that you cannot imagine.